Yeah, you better get it out.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, this is Mike with the 30A Company. As you know, we're the Beach Happy Company, and on a good day, under normal times, our mission is to bring the beach to you, especially when you cannot be here. Our job is to remind you of that feeling you get when you are at the beach, whether you're in Nashville or Atlanta or Des Moines or Baltimore or Portland. We have fans all over the world, and our Beach Happy mission is to bring you information from the coast, but also hopefully inspirational stories from the coast. And that's what the Beach Happy podcast and the Beach Happy show here on 30A is all about. I have the honor of being able to be a conduit of information during times like this, whether it's hurricanes or the Deepwater Horizon incident. The 30A Company has been here to kind of keep fans in touch with what's going on at the beach. And that doesn't always include, the fun stuff. That also includes information that's going to keep you and your family safe and healthy and happy. And obviously all of our beaches right now are closed, pretty much as are most every business and a lot of the resorts that you guys patronize during the spring months are all shut down. We're hoping things will change obviously sooner rather than later. But until that time, we're doing our best to bring you guys information and fun stories from the coast. So again, I kind of have the honor of being joined today by the leadership at our South Walton Fire District. I have Sammy Sanchez, who is our fire marshal, and Tim Orenic, Division Chief of our EMS. And guys, just want to, number one, thank you for taking a moment to join us today. Can you hear me all right?
We sure can. Thanks for having us, Mike.
Good morning.
Of course, yeah. And I want to encourage everyone who's in the audience to ask questions. You have leadership here from our South Walton Fire Division, Fire District, and they are responsible for so many things in our community. And we're going to talk about what some of those responsibilities are. But if you do have questions, please post them below, and we will do our best right now to get you some answers straight from the source. So Sammy and Tim, we have, of course, already received the question that I'm sure you guys get. I know we get it all the time, so I'm going to go ahead and get it out of the way. Chelsea Morris asked, is there any word on when the beaches will reopen? That
is the magic question, right, Mike?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we don't have a time. When the beach opens up is really that's the county board of county commissioners. They're the ones that are going to make that final decision. And I'm sure that when the time is right and they feel that it's safe for everybody to go back to the beach, I'm sure that's when it'll open up. But that doesn't fall with us. We're community partners and we support what the county does. But again, that's Walton County Board of County Commissioners.
Understood. So you guys are waiting for the same answer that we all are. And until that time, you're helping as first responders. So I do want to, number one, on behalf of the 30A tribe and the 30A nation, thank you guys for being first responders. You really are seeing it up close and personal. And I know that you're risking your life and the lives of your loved ones by putting yourself in that position. So I do want to thank you guys sincerely for doing what you do for our community on a good week, much less during a global pandemic.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
So let me ask a question. So what, as EMS providers, how is COVID-19 affecting our EMS responses?
So, Mike, I can answer that question. We've had to do a lot of research and keep up with CDC recommendations, like you said, to keep our firefighters, our paramedics, the community safe, because one of the main obstacles with this response is that when we transport patients in the back of ambulance, they're in a very tight enclosed space, and that can prevent problems with the spread of the virus. So we've done a lot of policies, training, and now you will see firefighters and paramedics when they arrive on scene, which is not the normal, because firefighters and paramedics want to come in and help the patient and treat them right away, you will see them asking questions when they arrive in the doorway before they even go into a building, saying, does anyone have COVID-like symptoms? And this is a preempt to make sure that we're coming into the scene and treating the patient with a proper protection that will keep the firefighters and the patients and anyone in the household safe. You'll also, if you call 911 for something, they will ask these questions. Does anyone have a fever, cough, difficulty in breathing? Have the travel question we no longer ask because it's communically spread now. And so they will get this information ahead of time so we can make sure that everyone's PPD'd up. And then the second part, when they arrive into the patient, you'll see them stand 6 feet away and ask these questions again. And one person will go in what we call a 6-foot halo. Other crew members have to stay in basically a 6-foot radius until the first responder, paramedic, firefighter goes in and assess the needs of the patient. If they need more help, they will actually then say, I need 1 or 2 more people to come in, and they will put their personal protection on. And we're minimizing how many people actually treat the patient, so there's less risk of exposure to the firefighter, paramedics, less risk of getting it spread throughout the house or in the back of the ambulance, which has been, like I said, not business as normal for us, because we always want to come in and take care of our community. And it's kind of been a slower pace, and our paramedics and firefighters are finally getting used to that. And the community has kind of been like, well, why are you not coming in and initially treating me? And we were explaining that we actually have built a pamphlet for the citizens that we hand out on the scene too, that explains some of this to help them with this new procedure. And it's been working very effectively on making sure that everyone's staying safe, because like you said, we are first responders, but we work in, fire stations 24 hours. We can't afford to have this spread into one fire station or in the back of the rescue when we transport another patient. So we've done extremely a lot of research and updated our policies and trained a lot to make sure that we're doing the right things on CDC guidelines to protect our patients and treat them appropriately.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be a tough, as a father of 4 children, I've had you guys over to my house more than once, I think, in my beat up parental career. And you guys are always so hands-on and caring. I have to imagine it's a little bit of a transition for you to kind of have to now stay at arm's length, at least distance, especially when you guys are usually kind of not just providing health care, you're providing a sense of comfort, when people are traumatized or when they're scared. So that has probably been a little bit of a psychological change for you guys as well, right?
Oh, yes. And luckily we're used to, fire departments are very good at adapting to situations. And like you said earlier, hurricanes and disasters. And so our firefighters have been very resilient on getting ahead of the curve and training and staying in the forefront and leading other communities in what we're doing to keep our community safe and our firefighters safe, so we are able to respond to all kinds of other emergencies that are still going on during this pandemic.
So we have other questions from audience members. Julia Lauren is asking, are the hospitals empty? What do you know about our current capacity here? I mean, because that's one thing our visitors probably don't understand. When we made, as a community, the unfortunate, but I think correct decision to kind of ask everyone to kind of go back to their states of origin. Part of that is because we are a small town with a really small population, and our hospitals and our response systems aren't set up to accommodate millions of people, who might have been flocking to the coast. So what is our current capacity? And do you have any information about whether we're seeing an increase or a decrease or about the same, or what are you seeing?
So initially, when this all started, early February, the hospitals and us as the primary EMS agency in South Walton worked very diligently to be prepared for the rush of patients. Emerald Coast Hospital has been amazing on being prepared and putting these patients in the right treatment areas and notifying EMS if they had an exposure of a patient, so we could follow our firefighters and make sure they didn't have any symptoms after. And as when the order for social distancing and as we got longer into the governor's decision to shut down more of areas, the surge went from visitors that were in the hospital with Cova related to all the patients in the hospital now are local residents. So that kind of helped the hospital catch up, because the visitors that were infected, of course, would want to be home. They headed back home and were being treated locally at where they lived. And so right now the hospital is doing very well. The capacity is low, but we do anticipate the surge is still projected for May 3rd, which changes daily, but we're working with the hospital, and the hospital's been super diligent about preparing. We do drills on preparing for surge. If the surge comes, we have abilities to set up, like tents and other rooms to handle any kind of additional surge. So I'm happy to report that the hospital's been doing great in treating patients and handling the surge.
Sheila, Justin is thanking us for our views of the beach. And one of the things we do here is we do try to keep people, we try to bring the beach to their house, since we all can't be out on the white sand right now. But, she does bring up another great point about mental health. Are you guys seeing any calls related to, people being locked at home, being in depression, or what has changed since we've been at this kind of under a stay-at-home, Sammy? What are we seeing, perhaps different in types of the situation that we're in now?
Well, I don't think that we've seen an increase in mental health calls for our area. I know in some of our surrounding or neighboring jurisdictions, that seems to be a big thing. I read something in Bay County where they were starting to see an increase in domestic violence. That's all part of it. So, but here, as far as mental health, I cannot, say that we've seen an increase or not.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing for our community.
Absolutely. So Wendy Gaskins is asking, how do you plan to keep crowds to a minimum, even though the beaches are closed? How do you do it on boardwalks, especially say during holiday weekends? Let's say that the hopefully not the case, but let's say that it extends through Memorial Day weekend. What plans in place do we have as a community to kind of make sure that there aren't large congregations of people starting to happen?
That's a good question, Mike. I'm with you on that. I hope it doesn't extend into that far into May, but if it does, again, the enforcement part of congregating and social distancing, that falls under the sheriff's authority, and they do a real good job. Of course, we're community partners, and we'll do whatever we can to help with that. We have beach lifeguards that are still working right now, and some of the things they're doing are they're assisting Walton County SO with the closure enforcement. They don't have arrest powers. They're just lifeguards. And I shouldn't say just lifeguards. They are great lifeguards. They're the best. They're the best in the area. But they don't have arrest power. So people think that, it's a lifeguard. He has the ability to arrest people or fine them. We don't do that. All we're doing is helping them, helping the SO because they're already out on the beach. And some of the things they're doing, they're helping work. They're working with TDC, beach maintenance, cleaning up. I just got a picture from one of them yesterday. They, believe it or not, they picked up several bags of trash on the beach, and which is amazing to me that this beach is supposed to be empty. but there was still that much trash out there. So they're staying busy. But to answer the question, I guess we would refer that to the ladies and men in the green uniforms with the badge and the guns.
Sounds like a plan. One of the things, though, is people don't realize necessarily everything that you guys do. You're not just, responding to fire calls and to health calls. You guys, as first responders in our community, you are managing and running the lifeguard and the beach patrol part of the county. Tell us a little bit about that. And that's something else that people don't understand. A lot of times they hear Tourism Development Council and they don't realize that, these guys aren't just promoting the area. They really help us keep the beaches safe, keep the beaches clean. Talk a little bit about that part of the South Walton Fire District.
So we have a beach safety director, David Vaughn, and he's not with us today. So I'll try to fill in as best as I can. The beach program was started about 14 years ago through the TDC. Mike, I'm sure you remember Black Sunday, and that's really what prompted all of this, is to come up with a lifeguard program. And we've been fortunate enough that every year or every time contract comes up, they renegotiate with us, because I'll be honest with you, our crews, they're great. And why else would you want anybody else to do it? I don't know. I'm just going to say that and just give our folks some props, because they deserve it.
They do an amazing job, really.
They do. But in saying that, the program is funded through the TDC, and we partner with them. And as long as they continue to let us do it, we want to certainly continue to provide that service for our community.
All right, that's great. So, what are in our community? What would you say we're doing differently with our EMS response? Is there anything that we're doing different as a community, or that as a coastal community we have to be doing something a little bit different than perhaps other communities? Is there anything that separates what you guys are doing from others?
Well, I mean, yes and no. Here at South Walton, our medics are really highly trained, above the national average for treatments. We do evidence-based practice, which in the older days, it was kind of like you did this because you thought it would work. And now EMS has evolved to, we can actually track our patients with data. We use a report writing system that collects data to see what we're doing out in the field is actually helping the patients. So we're ahead of the curve here at South Walton than some other agencies, and making sure that our citizens have the highest quality of medical care when we provide it. And that evolves and changes every day. And our whole division works on making sure that when you're visiting here, that you have good emergency care when you need it. And we offer public CPR courses that unfortunately are on hold during this pandemic, but as soon as they start going again, if we can get the public to start chest compressions, for example, somebody having cardiac arrest, and we can get there under 8 minutes, we have a 50% chance of survival. So it's teaching the community, getting them as being the first intervention, and then us having the advanced skills really makes a difference above some other communities. So we're happy that we can provide that.
We do get a lot of questions here at 30A, and I recognize you guys have a very specific focus, but people do ask, hey, I've got reservations this summer. What should I be doing? Do you guys have any, I know that you can't predict the future. When you get asked that question, how are you responding to people who are wondering whether they should cancel their 4th of July plans or reschedule something for Memorial Day? What's the latest thinking?
Well, if if it's a short-term rental, currently the governor extended that short-term rental. I believe it was last week. He extended it a little further out. So I don't know how you can be able to stay down here if you can't get into a short-term rental, unless you have property down here. That's a tough call. I'm certainly not in a position to tell anybody not to come here, but we're just like everybody else. I mean, when you think about this pandemic, it's just not affecting South Walton. It's affecting the entire world. and we're in no better shape than most places, and we're no worse than some places. So again, that's not for us to decide whether you should come down here or not. If you ask me, I think you should continue to shelter in place like the rest of the world is doing at this moment until the CDC gives us the all clear. It's too risky. I mean, that's just my opinion. Again, I don't work for the CDC. I work for South Walton Fire District, and we're considered essential personnel, and we still come to work, and we still have to respond. And it's like you said earlier, talking about the hospitals and taxing our ability to respond more. And that happens every year when people come down here. Obviously, you mentioned we're a small community, but in the summer, the influx comes in, and we've got 100,000 people here. And do we need that many people here right now? I would probably say no.
To that point, and by the way, guys, we have time for another question or two. If you want to shout out any questions you have in the comments below, we would love to feature your question and let Sammy and Tim give you information, straight from the source. But before we wrap up, what sorts of conversations, because Tim, I know you're relatively new to the South Walton Fire District, having retired and been brought back off the bench into the game. And as we were talking right before the call, you don't come off the bench for a retired laid back beach assignment and all of a sudden find yourself in the midst of a global pandemic.
Right.
I'm sure that's a little bit of a shock to the system. But what sorts of, and obviously we all hope this passes soon, and we hope it passes in completely, but you guys have to be thinking ahead. You guys have to be thinking about the what if scenarios. What sorts of planning are you guys doing behind the scenes? And again, not to scare anyone or anything like that, but just, you have to be thinking that way. You mentioned tents. What sorts of larger scale plans have you guys been having to consider, or what sorts of drills are you doing that you might not have been doing even, 2 months ago?
So one thing we do, like you said, we're very good at preparing and planning ahead of time. We still every day look at and calculate like our PPE usage, our personal protection equipment, to make sure that we have a supply that's going to last for the projected time of what the CDC, gives us guidelines. And if they think it's 30 days and then it's 20 days, we try to prepare our equipment for that. Also, in our planning process is to continue to make sure that the fire department is going to just function on other necessary functions like you talked about. It's not a single focus on just the COVID-19 response. We still have structure fires to attend to. Sammy still has building plans to review. Yeah. And the lifeguards are still on the beach. So it's making sure that the pandemic also doesn't affect normal fire department operations. And I have to say, all the chiefs, all the lieutenants, and all the firefighters here have been diligent on making sure that their training stays current, because firefighters and medics, that dual role responsibility has a lot of continuing education hours that have to be maintained. So we're not just stopping normal operations and making sure when this is over that we continue as we did before.
Mike Grubbs is asking, is there any talk of opening the beaches to residents? Some communities are trying that approach where they, are saying, hey, it's okay to walk on the beach as fitness or exercise, but it's not okay, obviously, to congregate. What there have been different responses, and by no means is anyone second guessing the decision that our county made to do it. But has there been any talk that if it does get extended, has there been talk of, is there a hybrid solution? Just curious.
Not that I'm aware of, Mike. I've read and I've seen some other counties that are trying to implement something similar to that. I'd be curious to see how that works, more from an enforcement section. Again, that wouldn't be us to begin with, but I'd be curious to see how if that were to happen, how they could enforce that. So that I think that might be a hurdle that may be too big for our county. But again, it's an interesting concept.
Ryan, you are welcome. And we also want to thank Sammy and Tim for joining us today. We know you guys are extraordinarily busy, and for you to carve out any time for us is appreciated. I do want to again kind of say to everyone who, on behalf of everyone who is watching, to thank you guys for being first responders, not just on the beach when a loved one is in need of a rescue or has, overdose of heat. You guys are always there, but now also putting your lives and your family's lives on the line to help our community get through this pandemic. So, we do sincerely thank you. I do also want to mention that we have a discount for all first responders. Sammy and Tim are right down the street from our office, so they get an even closer discount. Just being able to run down the street to the South Walton Fire District. But I do, for anyone out there watching, we've already issued hundreds of discounts. There is a process. If you are a credentialed first responder, you get a huge discount on 30agear.com right now. You go in there and you have to provide your credentials through a system that is set up for first responders, but we've had hundreds of you do that. I also want to mention that we have a Spread Happiness shirt line that we came out with, and we are donating $5 from every shirt to a nonprofit organization that's providing masks and other essential equipment to first responders all over the United States. So you can go to 30agear.com and click on it, learn all about the charity and what work they're doing. But also know that every shirt you buy, $5 of that is going to put, equipment, much needed equipment into the hands of our first responders all over the world. Let me ask you guys, Sammy and Tim, what about equipment? Are we seeing shortages in our community? And if so, is there anything the community can do, to help?
We did set up, Sammy put a link on Facebook. If the community does have items they would like to donate, they will call Lori at the fire station.
No, Hannah.
Oh, son. Yeah. And they can call and we'll happily come look at it and see if it's something we can use. As of right now, our fire department stock of personal equipment is doing okay. And the Walton County Health District has been amazing. We got a delivery from them last week on some equipment, and we're starting to see a little better flow from manufacturers now than a couple weeks ago. So I'm starting to feel a little bit more comfortable as we order equipment that we're going to get what we need. It seems like the manufacturers are catching up right now. So hopefully that continues and the government can get us some surplus if we run short in a couple of months or so.
So we continue to get questions, of course, about the beach being open and when it will be open. And for anyone who's tuning in late, we did address that at the beginning of the broadcast. Right now, none of us knows. We wish we had a crystal ball and could tell you exactly when the beach will be open. For right now, we're all doing our part, and Tim and Sammy and the rest of our amazing first responders at South Walton Fire District will be the first to welcome us back to the beaches. I know when that day comes, I know you've got a lot of lifeguards who are eager to jump into the season and eager to host all of our guests. But until that time, our advice is to just continue to stay at home, do your part to minimize exposure to others and to minimize the exposure to your own family. Sammy, Tim, want to thank you so much for joining us. I mean, it really is great knowing that you guys are always there when we need you. And usually none of us expect to need you, but when we do need you and you're there, that is an incredible comfort knowing that there are smiling faces ready to help us in our worst moments.
Hey, Mike, we appreciate you and 30A and everything that you do for us, not just for this, but throughout the years. We've kind of grown this relationship between us, and we certainly appreciate your support. Like you said, you're right. As soon as we hear that the beaches are open, everybody else is going to hear. We can assure you that. And I would not be doing my job if I didn't make a quick plug for fire safety. So I know a lot of you folks are sitting at home and you're always wondering, when do I have time to make an escape plan? When do I have time to practice it with my kids? It's kind of what I hear all the time. Hey, guess what? You have plenty of time right now, and you should take it upon yourselves to create a safe fire escape plan for you and your kids. Make sure your smoke alarms are working. Make sure you have a working fire extinguisher. And, what a better time to do it now.
That's a great point. That is something that so many of us put things off. And whether it's working out or whether it's meditation or whether it's a fire safety plan or whether it's just certain projects. And I tell you what, as a dude that's home trapped with a wife and children, I'm running out of excuses not to accomplish some of these things that I keep putting out. So there is no excuse for you not to take this opportunity with your children, especially at home. If they're young children and you've never introduced them to a fire safety plan, to show them which window is open, which window is free from screens. And I know if you go to South Walton Fire District's Facebook page, I bet between the two of us today, we can share a list of tips that you should be implementing at home.
Absolutely. And if you want to put my email out there, Mike, folks can email me direct, and I actually have a home fire inspection checklist that I'd be more than happy to share with them. And we'll see if we can't get that on our Facebook or on our website so they can go to that link and download that for themselves.
And Mike, Sammy's doing a great job at posting as much COVID information on the Facebook page as it comes out as soon as possible. So it's a good resource for your viewers to get information. Yeah,
that's a real quick point, Mike. I see a lot of people going to different sources for their information. I got to be honest with you. Here in Walton County, I would stick with some reliable known sources for anything COVID. I would stick with Walton County Emergency Management. I would stick with South Walton Fire District. I would stick with the Florida Department of Health and Walton County Sheriff's Office. I'm not disputing or saying no one else is reliable, but those are four pretty good sources for information, and we're all reading off the same sheet of music, and so we're all getting that information pretty much at the same time. So if you're having trouble trying to figure out where to get good info, I just gave you four sources, and I always tag you guys on it as well. So.
Well, I tell you what, you're for anyone who does want the latest information, South Walton Fire District. I follow you guys on Facebook, as does most of our community, and it really is a great place not only to stay up to date on emerging situations, but also just great tips, whether it's beach safety tips or hydration tips. You guys are always on it. So again, thank you for what you do. All right, guys. So this is Mike. We're going to be tuning out and letting Sammy and Tim and the rest of our South Walton Fire District team get back to the mission of serving our community. We want to thank all first responders. Again, if you go to 38gear.com, if you are a first responder, there's a way for you to get a pretty massive discount right now. And we do want to thank you for everything you're doing as first responders, whether you're here in our community or anywhere around the world. We also want to remind you that we do have Spread Happiness t-shirts that are made from recycled plastic water bottles. But beyond the environmental impact, we're donating $5 from every sale of those Spread Happiness shirts to first responders, to an organization that is helping to provide them with much needed and much limited resources that are going to help protect them and their family from exposure. So thanks again to Sammy and Tim for joining us. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoy this broadcast and being notified about news from the beach, please click Get Notifications. Make sure you're subscribing to our channel. And we'll continue to do our best to not only bring you the beach, but to bring you a little happiness along the way. So thanks again, and we will talk soon.